Here's what's coming up on the world today. Russia regains control of village in Donetsk while Ukraine strikes Russian control points and ammunition depots. 3 people shot dead, 8 others injured in a shooting attack in Jerusalem. Last United Nations General Antonio Guterres says that 2023 will be the hottest year in human history. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Anne Nwawadu. We begin in Russia and Ukraine, where launch for a tit-for-tat move of each other's military targets have begun. The Russian Defense Ministry said that in the past 24 hours, the Russian army repelled the offensive of the Ukrainian army in the direction of Kupiansk, regained control of the village in Donetsk, and then defeated 3 brigades of the Ukrainian army in the direction of Zaporizhia. On the other hand, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces issued a report saying that in the past 24 hours, 73 battles have transpired at the front line. It also adds that the Ukrainian Air Force, rocket and artillery units all struck a number of Russian targets, including control points, munition depots, anti-aircraft missile systems, and positions of Russian personnel, weapons, and military equipment. Meanwhile, Ukrainian authorities are saying that Russian missile strikes killed 1 person and wounded 10 other people in the Donetsk region. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky also visited troops near the Kupiansk sector of the front line in the country's northeastern region. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says that there is no sense of fatigue among NATO allies when it comes to helping Ukraine, adding that all NATO allies express strong, enduring solidarity with Kiev. He made this disclosure at the NATO's Foreign Ministers' Conference in the Belgium capital, Brussels.
We focused on NATO's enduring support and commitment to Ukraine. And I have to tell you, listening to all of our colleagues around the table, every single one expressed strong, enduring support for Ukraine. Some are questioning whether the United States and other NATO allies should continue to stand with Ukraine as we enter the second winter of Putin's brutality. But the answer here today at NATO is clear and it's unwavering. We must and we will continue to support Ukraine. I heard no sense of fatigue or falling back. On the contrary, a determination to continue to press forward. And there's a good reason for that. I think every ally recognizes that this is a matter not only of doing the right thing, it's a matter of self-interest, including for the United States. Looking at the next couple of days, we'll be focused on doing what we can to extend the pause so that we can continue to get more hostages out and more humanitarian assistance in. With regard to the pause, look, we'd like to see the pause extended because what it has enabled, first and foremost, is hostages being released, coming home, being reunited with their families. It's also enabled us to surge humanitarian assistance into the people of Gaza who so desperately need it. So its continuation, by definition, means that more hostages would be coming home, more assistance would be getting in. So clearly, that's something we want, and I believe it's also something that Israel wants.
Meanwhile, Mr. Blinken held a meeting with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba on the sidelines of a NATO meeting. Mr. Blinken reiterated the U.S.'s stance on its enduring commitments to Ukraine, adding that Ukraine will become a member of NATO when all conditions are met. Mr. Kuleba, on the other hand, was stunned to see the harmony among the NATO allies.
It is always great to be with my friend, my colleague, Dmytro Kuleba, but especially good here to be here at NATO and sitting around the table together and making sure and making clear, as we heard from every single country around the NATO table, our enduring commitment to Ukraine, to making sure that Ukraine has what it needs to defend itself against Russian aggression, to continue to take back territory seized from it by Russia, as well as to build a strong country that stands strongly on its own feet, militarily, economically, democratically. All of that was very, very clear around the NATO table over the last 2 days, including with the foreign minister today. And the relationship, the partnership between NATO and Ukraine is also vitally important. We reaffirmed the commitments made at Vilnius that Ukraine will become a member of NATO when allies agree and conditions are met. But we also focused intensely on the practical work that is being done and will continue to be done as we head to the Washington summit next year on continuing to strengthen Ukraine's capacity.
But if I am to sum up the meeting that we had today, there was a clear no to fatigue and a clear yes to continued and increased support to Ukraine. And it's striking to see this spirit and of unity in the room on these two issues.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has warned that Russia has accumulated a large missile stockpile ahead of winter, adding that Moscow is now becoming much independent on China. Speaking on Ukraine's NATO's membership bid, Mr. Stoltenberg hinted that the country is closer to NATO than ever before, as allies agree that Kiev will become a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Russia has amassed a large missile stockpile ahead of winter, and we see new attempts to strike Ukraine's power grid and energy infrastructure, trying to leave Ukraine in the dark and cold. Russia is also becoming much more dependent on China. Year by year, Moscow is mortgaging its future to Beijing. Militarily, Russia has lost a substantial part of its conventional forces. Hundreds of aircraft, thousands of tanks, and more than 300,000 casualties. Allies agree that Ukraine will become a member of NATO. We have now provided recommendations on Ukraine's priority reforms, including the fight against corruption, strengthening the rule of law, and supporting human rights and minority rights. Ukraine is closer to NATO than ever before. We will continue to support them on the path to membership, and will continue to support Ukraine's fight for freedom.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has arrived for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe summit. Well, a summit boycotted by the Baltic countries and Ukraine in protest at Mr. Lavrov's presence. Austrian Foreign Minister Alexandra Schellenberg also told the media that he understood Ukraine's decision not to attend, but pledged that the summit was a much-needed platform for dialogue.
I fully understand that, and I fully emotionally also understand Ukrainian friends which have decided not to come. But I believe this is still an organization which we need, not only for concerning the relations which are extremely difficult with Russia, but for Central Asia, for the Southern Caucasus. So we need this platform for dialogue. And if I look at the state of world affairs, I believe we need more than rather less OSCE in the future.
Meanwhile, some delegations at the OSCE Foreign Ministers Summit left the room as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov began his address. Mr. Lavrov condemned the West for hybrid war against Russia, adding that the OSCE was on the brink of a disaster and that the West was killing the chances of reviving the group. The Russian Foreign Minister's invitation to the summit faced backlash from some countries boycotting that event, like we mentioned earlier, and even Bulgaria prevented the Russian Foreign Minister from flying over its territory on his way to the area. And joining us now is VOA's Anna Chernikova, joins us virtually from Kiev. Thank you very much, Anna, for joining us on The World Today.
Good evening.
Good evening. What more can you tell us regarding the overnight Russian strike on Donetsk, and with Russia saying it regained control of that village? What is going on there?
Well, what we know for this moment, and the update just coming in, that 8 missiles were used over the night to attack Ukraine, alongside with 20 drones. And 6 missiles were targeting Donetsk region, 3 settlements, 3 cities in the Donetsk region particularly. At this point, we know that at least 10 people were injured. 1 person died. A man was found under the rubble. Unfortunately, he was killed by the missile attack. 1 child is still missing, and 4 adults also are still missing. This particular attack was mostly targeting residential areas, buildings, apartment buildings, and houses, private houses, and also civilian infrastructure in these cities. Again, in terms of gaining control, there is no confirmed information, at least from the sources, from the trusted sources, sources we can take as a confirmation that any of those towns or cities were captured by Russia. There is a fact of shelling, this is for sure, and it looks like that Ukrainian services are working there, so Ukrainian rescue services and Ukrainian police and so on. So at this point, there is no confirmation of any capturing, but unfortunately, rescue operation has to be still ongoing due to the damage. And at this point, we do not still have final numbers of victims and final result of this attack.
All right, Anna, but how is Ukraine processing this renewed show of support by NATO allies, seeing that the country, of course, is 1 step from becoming a NATO member? What is going on with people in the country? How are they reacting to this?
I can say that this past weeks especially, there were a lot of talks about less support to Ukraine and less attention to Ukraine and to the war in Ukraine. And of course, any new new words of support, new reaction to what's going on in the country, and let's say renewed attention is of course a positive sign for the country, for its people. Ukrainians of course hope that this support will continue and that this path, Euro-Atlantic path, European path, will reach the destination at one point. And we can hear from Ukrainian authorities that a lot of reforms are done and are in process in order to get to this final result. And at the same time, Ukrainian allies, Western allies, confirm that reforms are in progress and some of them are done. So definitely this context in general creates this positive, definitely positive vibe here in Ukraine, alongside with intensified shelling and cold winter, which is already here as weather is getting colder, and of course this kind of meetings that demonstrate such support creates a lot of hope in the life of Ukrainian and in people's everyday life as well, because everyone is kind of getting ready to a difficult winter.
All right, Anna, now how is Ukraine coping with the weather conditions? I mean, you just talked about winter coming there, particularly the frontline troops at this moment. We know that NATO chief is already warning that Russia has stocked up large missiles ahead of winter. How about Ukraine?
This is quite a high level of fear, and Ukrainians are getting ready to intensify shelling from Russian side. Everyone is expecting that this shelling will increase as the weather is getting colder and winter is coming deeper and deeper in every region of the country. We can see that the south areas of Ukraine are already suffering from quite heavy snowfall and quite cold weather, as well as the capital Kyiv and central areas. And it's definitely getting colder, and this is something that Ukrainians expect, that more snow and more extremely cold conditions are coming, and Russian missiles will follow that. This is was discussed a lot within the society and also by the Ukrainian officials. So we will see if this would be the case, and if yes, when Russian Federation will intensify the shelling. At this point, I can say that it's already intensified, and in these past days and weeks, more and more attacks on the energy infrastructure is in place, and particularly on the city of Kyiv. A couple of days ago, it was quite a bad attack. In terms of the front line, as you mentioned in the beginning of your question, also we can see, and it's confirmed by the Ukrainian military officials as well as international experts, that the movement and the actions at the front line is getting it's more harder and harder for both sides to advance, to show certain pace that was previously because of the weather conditions and of the cold conditions. So we can definitely see that also weather is also affecting these actions at the front line, and it looks like that with time, with winter time, it will get certain changes will be in place at the front line as well. At this point, we can just confirm that frontline is still active, and Ukrainians are getting ready for winter.
All right, Anna, before I let you go, I mean, how about the war in the Middle East? Is it gaining traction? Are people talking about it in Ukraine, knowing that Ukrainians are still at war? What is going on with what they think about the war in the Middle East?
Definitely, it's quite an important question, and it has two sides. First side is that, of course, attention has been moved away from Ukraine because of what's happening in there, and it's understandable, but for Ukrainians, of course, it's not a good sign. Ukrainians, hope that attention could be divided and still remain for Ukraine as well. And second side is that a lot of Ukrainians are located in that areas, and both in Israel and in Gaza, as we can see from the data provided by Ukrainian authorities, officials from these countries, from that areas, about the number of Ukrainians being evacuated already. And we see that, and we also have numbers of amount of Ukrainians who fled Ukraine due to the war to Israel, particularly. So for Ukrainians, it's quite an important also question, and these events are extremely important because they are not only affecting the attention to the war in Ukraine, but also it's affecting people, relatives of some people who remain in Ukraine and who, of course, follows the news, follows the events in that area because they have relatives there, and quite a lot of relatives. So it's historically it's kind of connected. So Ukrainians, I think that they can understand what's happening in there more than anyone else because they are also going through something similar.
All right, thank you very much. VOA's Anna Chernikova from Kiev. Thanks a lot, and please stay safe. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
In just a moment, after the break, former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, also who played a vital role in U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War, dies at the age of 100. We'll bring you the details of this and more. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Away from Russia's invasion of Ukraine now, Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend a temporary ceasefire in Gaza for a 7th day as international mediators try to negotiate the release of more hostages. This new development is coming just before the truce was set to expire at midnight today. According to a statement, Israel's military said it will continue the ceasefire, and Hamas, on the other hand, says a truce could continue for a 7th day. Hours before this announcement, Palestinians in Ramallah celebrated as Israel released 30 Palestinian prisoners from jails in exchange for Hamas releasing 16 Israeli hostages. At least 3 people have been killed and 8 others injured after 2 gunmen opened fire at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Police say the gunmen were 2 Palestinians armed with an M16 rifle and a handgun shooting during the morning rush hour at the entrance into the city. The shooters came from East Jerusalem and were stopped by off-duty soldiers and another civilian who was nearby. They have been killed at the scene by police. And this shooting is coming amid a fragile truce in Gaza between Israel and Hamas that has extended now for another day and has seen the exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. 17 freed Thai hostages have returned to Bangkok, and that's after being held by Hamas. Some of their family members arrived in the early hours of today in a suburban airport, eagerly awaiting their loved ones' return. A total of 23 Thai hostages have been released in Gaza, with 9 of them remaining in captivity. Another of the Thai government, Hamas gunmen from Gaza, killed 39 Thais and abducted 32 of them who were laborers during the October 7 attack on Israel. In the meantime, the United Nations has called for the international community to move towards the 2-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, adding that the Jerusalem should serve as the capital for both states. Delivering a speech authored by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Tatiana Volovaia, Director General of the UN office in Geneva, said that this would mean living side by side in peace and security. The comments coincide with the United Nations International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, which it observes annually.
We must be united in demanding an end to the occupation and the blockade of Gaza. It is long past time to move in a determined, irreversible way towards a 2-state solution on the basis of United Nations resolutions and international law, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states.
Now the 2-state solution is difficult after the settlements and shrinking, but still possible if there is a will. And maybe it's a wake-up after this loses 20,000 Palestinians murdered. 70% of them are children, women, and elders. And the total destruction of Gaza and what's going in West Bank is not less than. So now is the moment, and it's good for Israel, by the way. If they don't accept the idea, it will be too late for them, not for us.
And meanwhile, in a press conference at the United Nations, Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan have stressed the need for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres had warned earlier that the Gaza Strip was in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe and has asked the world not to look away.
We are here to make a clear statement that a truce is not enough. What is needed is a ceasefire. What is needed is a credible peace, and a peace that lasts and that allows the Palestinians and the Israelis to live side by side in 2 states. Anything else will result in continuing crisis in the region.
We are, as a group, is working very hard to make sure that the international community lives up to its responsibilities, both legal and moral. I think this is very important because in the absence of moral compass, we will lose our way as humanity. So therefore, as international community, we need to do our best to address this issue at every level, at humanitarian level, at political level, and we need immediate ceasefire, we need immediate humanitarian assistance. At the same time, we need to start immediately to address the root cause of the problem, which is two-state solution.
And for U.S. President Joe Biden, he is relieved that Israel-American hostage Liat Benin has been released by Hamas after being abducted on October the 7th. Mr. Biden said that he had crossed the Gaza border and was safe in Egypt, and that she was among the 16 hostages released on Wednesday by Hamas.
Liat Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father. They're very appreciative, and things are moving well. She'll soon be home with her 3 children.
And Israeli President Isaac Herzog has pledged his government's commitment to increasing and sustaining the supply of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Herzog made this comment while touring the Tzana crossing on the Israeli-Egypt border, where trucks set to contain food, water, shelter equipment and medical supplies were all stationed before crossing into Gaza. The president says that many trucks were traveling into Gaza with humanitarian aid.
There's a huge amount of trucks that are flowing into Gaza with humanitarian aid. The quantity goes up and up in various forms, and the effort that is being done both on the international level and the Israeli-Egyptian level towards Gaza is huge. I want to thank all the partners that are dealing with the humanitarian aid that flows into Gaza. Israel is committed to increasing and sustaining the supply of humanitarian aid to the citizens of Gaza, those who are uninvolved in battle and in war and in terror.
Welcome. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has passed on at his home in Connecticut at the age of 100. The American diplomat and Nobel winner played a vital role in U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War. As expected, tributes have begun to pour in from all over the world, from leaders. Former U.S. President George W. Bush led tributes saying that the U.S. had lost one of the most dependable and distinctive voices on foreign affairs. The former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair described him as an artist of diplomacy, saying that Kissinger was motivated by a genuine love of the free world and the need to protect it. Others are saying that his life story was so unique and so thoroughly American. Despite leaving office in the mid-1970s, he continued to be consulted by generations of leaders for decades. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. Meanwhile, China's President Xi Jinping and senior Chinese officials have sent messages of condolence to the U.S. President Joe Biden and others after the passing of a veteran U.S. diplomat. Speaking at the press briefing in Beijing, the spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Wang Wenbin, says the Chinese people will remember Mr. Kissinger's sincere devotion and his important contribution to China-U.S. relations. He also added in his words, during his life, he attached great importance to China-U.S. relations and believed that the relations were vital to the peace and prosperity of both countries and the world. Both China and the United States should inherit and carry forward Mr. Kissinger's strategic vision, political courage, and his diplomatic wisdom. He's visited China more than 100 times, and last he met with President Xi Jinping during a surprise trip to Beijing in July this year. North Korea has said it will never negotiate its sovereignty with the United States, criticizing Washington as double-faced for offering talks while ramping up military activities in the region. Kim Yong-jeon, the powerful sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and the senior official said, in her words, the U.S. showed double standards, high-handed and arbitrary practices as this week's meeting of the UN Security Council over North Korea's recent launch of its first spy satellite. The meeting set the stage for a rare public spat between the U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield and North Korean Ambassador Kim Song, both arguing that their country's military activities are all defensive. And joining us now is Global Affairs Analyst Edward Opa. He joins us virtually from Dallas, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us on The World today.
Thank you for having me.
First, how is America reacting to this news?
How is America reacting? I don't think anybody is out there, showing any surprise. He's an aged man, 100 years, and he hasn't been actively involved in a lot of stuff. Even though, some presidents have called upon him for some advice, but we just dealing with the passing of Rosalind, Carter, the presidents, the first ladies, and we're there for that. So. Henry Kissinger passing, it's made some news, but, nobody's actually rallying around or gathering, on his behalf. So, he's made his contribution to the foreign relations development between U.S., China, Israel, and Palestinian issues and all that. But other than that, there's nobody lowering the flag, so to speak, in his honor.
But looking at the life and legacy of the U.S. diplomat, many people want to know what he will be remembered for the most.
I'm sorry, what is the question? The audio is a little more cracking.
All right, I'm talking about when you look at the life and legacy, many people want to know what he should be remembered for the most.
We're going to remember him for pluses and minuses, some things that were done positively, some things that were not done that he too has, looked back over the years and thought, wish that he didn't do, say or do. For instance, in the war between Pakistan and India, he sided with Pakistan and said Indians were cowards. And that statement or use of that particular word, has come to haunt him, and he has regretted ever doing it. The China issue, you could see, despite all the efforts to have a cordial relationship with China, China has turned out to be one of those things that one of those nations, or the nation that you never know which way they're going to go. They hate America, they love America, and we go back and forth, and everybody, America is pushing, they're pushing, and so Henry Kissinger has been part of that. But again, we have to live. It's a new day. Nobody's actually trying to copy or emulate his style of foreign relations.
All right. Now, his 8 years as both the National Security Advisor and, of course, Secretary of State, that happened between 1969 to 1977. These periods saw the U.S. finally end its involvement in the Vietnam War. It also opened up relations with China, if you recall. That was U.S.-China relations like before Mr. Kissinger's historic involvement. Before he did all of that, what was the relationship between the U.S. and China?
Well, before it was a lukewarm thing. China has always felt that, a dynasty. I remember one time when I was a member of DLW Foreign Relations Council, and Henry Kissinger was a guest speaker. He remembered when he went to China to talk about what the U.S. should expect them to do. He said that China just turned around and gave them one word. They said, "We are a dynasty." Or if just say we're a dynasty, and then that ended the meeting at that time. So, the China-U.S. relations is going to be one that in the next how many years or decades coming, it's not going to change, because now China wants to be a superpower, or they're already a superpower. And then they want to flex their muscle with, Taiwan. They want to claim Taiwan because they say Taiwan belongs to them, and Taiwan obviously is getting a lot of support from the U.S. So that pull and push is going to be going on as long as we live here. Henry Kissinger, before he got into this, basically there was no contact with China. And then, he got into it and then it opened the door for conversation, and that door has remained open. Sometimes it gets shut, sometimes it's, slightly open. And that's what we're going to see. When Reagan got elected, Reagan didn't like his style, and that was when he started shutting him down. And he has never been invited by any administration to play any significant role.
Before I let you go, Mr. Opa, finally, what do you make of the North Korea's comments describing the U.S. as double-faced?
Of course, everybody, I mean, you can look at U.S., you see what is going on in Afghanistan, you see what's going on in Iraq and Iran, you see wherever America has gone, sometimes they have good intentions, sometimes they have bad intentions. And when you can be pinned on one side, you could be considered as two-faced, And so North Korea has always been the thorn on the flesh of America. You can see from time to time, they come out with a statement or something, or fire missiles, and just to irritate or agitate America. So yes, any way anybody describes America, I think they have good reasons, to do it, whether we Americans agree or not. But that's how the world come to look at America, depending on who is the president, depending on who is the Secretary of State. At the time, the Secretary of State were the people that ordered the assassination of president, and they try to do everything possible to keep the president out of it. Just even what happened in Congo. Eisenhower was president, and then, he was just the station chief of, station chief of CIA station chief in Congo, working with some of the State Department, Secretary of State, Allen Dulles, that got Mobutu where they got him. And so, yes, America is a two-faced nation, even when it comes to the nation of Israel. You could see it back and forth sometimes. The president don't like to support Israel, and then the Jews want him to support Israel, and then some president comes in and stand for Israel. So that's America. They're on one side one day, they're on the other side another day. They let people, some of the policies they have pursued, to hurt and harm other countries, and then, they try to move on. So, yeah, the North Korean guy, has his justification, but is that what the world wants to hear? We don't care. We just, keep an eye on him, but because we know he's an isolated nation.
All right. Thank you very much. Global Affairs Analyst Edward Opa, thank you very much for your time and your contribution on the World's Day.
Well, thank you for having me, and talk to you soon.
And when we return in just a moment, United States House Speaker Mike Johnson lights up the annual U.S. Capitol Christmas tree, and all that happened in Washington. We'll have that story and more in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. 13 people have died in a fire at the hostel in Kazakhstan's biggest city, Almaty. According to a statement from the Almaty Police Department, 9 victims were Kazakhs. And also, the fire broke out early in the hours of today in a 3-story building whose ground and basement levels were occupied by 72 hostel guests. The victims died from carbon monoxide poisoning, while the remaining 59 people managed to leave the building. While the cause of the fire remains unclear, the government has said it has set up a special commission to investigate it. Libyan authorities have deported 248 undocumented migrants to their home countries, Niger and Chad, in a joint effort by rival administrations in the war-torn country. An official from Tripoli's government agency says that against clandestine immigration, said 120 Nigerians had left Libya for Niamey in coordination with the UN's International Organization for Migration. And in coordination with Libya's eastern-based authorities, 128 migrants will be taken to the border with Chad. The North African country has been in a hub of tens of thousands of migrants seeking to reach Europe by sea every year. A Gambian man in Germany has been sentenced to life for his role in an assassination squad that worked on behalf of Gambia's former president, Yahya Jammeh. The man, identified as Bay, also worked as a driver for the squad known as the Junglers. He was found guilty of crimes against humanity, murder, and attempted murder. In 2019, during hearings at Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, 3 other members of the Junglers accused Mr. Jammeh of ordering numerous murders, including notorious 2013 killings of 2 U.S. Gambian businessmen and veteran local journalist Deria Haidara. Among the crimes that he committed and has been accused of was helping to stop Haidara's car before he was killed and driving one of the assassins away. Right group's Human Rights Watch says that his trial was able to take place in Germany as it recognizes universal jurisdiction for serious crimes whenever they were committed. And it's the first day of the Global Climate Summit, COP28, taking place in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. The head of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said that this year will be the hottest year in human history, as records show that they are living through climate collapse in real time. Imploring the international community to act and deliver on climate commitments, he said the record should serve and send shivers down the spines of world leaders. Incoming COP28 President Sultan Al-Jaber also opened this year's summit by asking countries to find common grounds and policies to meet the global climate goals.
Let history reflect the fact that this is the presidency that made a bold choice to proactively engage with oil and gas companies. We had many hard discussions. Let me tell you, that wasn't easy. But today, many of these companies are committing to zero methane emissions by 2030 for the first time. And now, many national oil companies have adopted net zero 2050 targets for the first time.
Building on previous COPs, COP27 succeeded in delivering a number of much-needed and long-awaited elements to the global climate agenda. Together for Implementation was not just a slogan at COP27, but rather a timely call to move from setting rules, frameworks, and commitments to a clear focus on the tangible implementation of these commitments on the ground.
Either we can note the lack of progress, tweaking our current best practices, and encourage ourselves to do more at some other point in time. Or we decide at what point we'll have made everyone on the planet safe and resilient. We decide to fund this transition properly, including the response to loss and damage. And we decide to commit to a new energy system.
Ahead of Thursday's opening, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Denis Francis, highlighted the urgency of funding arrangements for landlocked and island nations to have a chance at fighting the climate crisis. He also mentioned the importance of keeping the goal of 1.5 degrees for the rise of global temperature.
The need to conclude work and operationalize the funds and funding arrangements for loss and damage. Least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states need these resources to reconcile the impacts of climate change on their communities. 2. The need to support the COP28 presidency's bid to triple renewable energy capacity. This is the only sure way to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and keep 1.5 degrees alive. 3. The need to urgently and dramatically scale up support for adaptation, including delivering on a global goal on adaptation and exponentially driving up finances. And 4, finally, but most importantly, the need for unity and solidarity. The international community must demonstrate to the people of the world that we can deliver. We need a win, and COP28
can be that win.
Meanwhile, Britain's King Charles, in the first of a number of bilateral discussions with world leaders, have met with the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The king said that he has been recovering from having a rather ancient birthday after the president asked how he was doing. The meeting begins a series of engagements during his two-day trip to Dubai ahead of the summit. King Charles will be making a speech on Friday, the first time he will deliver the opening address at the conference as king. And speaking about the King's birthday, King Charles III has already turned 75. That happened on the 14th of November. Celebrations have held across Britain to mark the monarch's birthday. But right here in Lagos, the British Deputy High Commission marked the occasion the first time in 72 years.
It was an unusual occasion, one the Deputy High Commission had probably never seen since it was established in Nigeria. For the first time in 72 years, they were hosting a king's birthday party, and not a queen's birthday party like they would normally do. The Deputy High Commissioner, John Baxter, welcomed guests to the occasion. The atmosphere reminiscent of a movie premiere, and people from all walks of life, including celebrities, captains of industry, and the press.
It is a special treat tonight to host this party for His Majesty King Charles III, particularly here in Lagos, because he's a man who is known to enjoy art and to appreciate dancing. And who can forget Tiwa Savage performing at his coronation concert earlier in the year? So what better place to celebrate his birthday than here in Lagos, the cultural capital of Nigeria. But I would also, and mostly, like to thank all of you for attending. You represent the breadth and the depth of the UK-Nigeria relationship across so many sectors, with so many family links, through so much shared history and so many shared values. And that is why we're here tonight.
Representing the Lagos State Government was the Secretary to the State Government, Abimbola Saludeen, who highlighted the special relationship between Lagos and the UK, reflected in the just concluded Lord Mayor's show in London.
It is a great privilege and honor to join distinguished guests at this reception organized to celebrate the birthday of His Majesty King Charles III. This occasion presents an opportunity to felicitate with the royal family, the government and the people of the United Kingdom, and for our two countries and Lagos State in particular to continue to nurture our existing friendly and mutually beneficial relationship. Just about a week ago, I led a delegation from our state to the Lord Mayor's show in London. During that visit, we had fruitful engagements that would further open investment and business opportunities between Lagos and the business community in the United Kingdom. On this note, and on behalf of the government and the good people of Lagos State, I felicitate with His Royal Majesty King Charles III and wish him many more years of good health and remarkable impact on the throne.
A lovely cake was cut in the King's honor, after which was a fashion show reflecting the theme for the night on recyclables. This is King Charles I's birthday as monarch. Many raised their glasses in a toast to his good health and well-being for many more.
All right, here we go.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Finally on the program, you're watching the annual lighting of the 2023 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree. United States House Speaker Mike Johnson and members of the House and Senate gathered for this occasion. Well, the Christmas tree is set to continue spreading holiday cheer until January the 1st,
a small
2024.
piece of your state's abundant beauty with us in Washington. I also want to thank Chief Randy Moore. This tree represents so much of what makes America great. As has been said, it was cultivated and harvested from a national forest. It's set forth for viewing in an array of communities across the country, and now it will be displayed for all of America to see right in front of the People's House. The tree is a beautiful tapestry. It's adorned with handmade ornaments from the Shawnee tribe and communities across West Virginia.
A lot of preparation and effort goes into finding the perfect Christmas tree for the U.S. Capitol. And I'm delighted to say that we made a beautiful selection this year, a 63-foot Norway spruce from the Monongahela National Forest in the Allegheny Mountains of West Virginia. The tree is from the Greenbrier Ranger District, home of the very first Capitol Christmas tree provided by the United States Forest Service in 1970.
A tradition of more than 50 years, the lighting of the Capitol Christmas tree. West Virginia is blessed with some of our nation's most beautiful forests and amazing landscapes. As you may have heard, this is actually the third time that West Virginia has provided the U.S. Christmas Capitol tree. The last time the tree came to the Mountain State was 1976.
To gather around the people's tree, a symbol of our country's strength, endurance, opportunity, and unity. Let us come together in the spirit of the people's tree and bring these patriotic principles into the new year.
Well, that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu.